Welcome to episode 248 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I'm again joined by Francesc Tomas. What a time to take a break, Francesc, from the show. Should we wager who will say something negative today first?
I'm not sure. I don't really know what rundown you've got ready. Hola culés, obviously first of all, and I'm really excited to see what's coming because over the last week nothing much has happened, so I've got no idea why I'm here.
Yeah, plenty of positivity. I think that's what, of course, we're alluding to, being a little sarcastic to start the show. Let me see if I can get all in here, Francesc. 2 wins over Sevilla, including the comeback necessary to make the Copa final, a win over Osasuna with a terrific goal from Ilaix Moriba, 2 more wins, including a comeback from Barca B, 2 more wins for Barca Femení, 1 in the Champions League and 1 in the league. Happy International Women's Day, by the way. And oh yeah, Barca have a new president as well. There is no possible way, unless we do a 3-hour show, that we could fit everything in here today. So that's why I enlisted the help of La Ronda, of course, that's our closed Facebook listener group, to guide us on our path and figuring out what listeners wanted to hear about. I know your teachers say do it in chronological order. And Francesc, being an academia yourself, chronological order, that's the way they want it. But we're going to throw that out the window for today's podcast. And starting with Joan Laporta, that's where we're going to start, with the new old president. And since the last time Francesc was on the show, I know it's felt like since Laporta's last time in charge, it's only been about a week and a half. The former president was also arrested. He's out of jail. He voted and all that stuff. But we're not going to focus on Bartomeu. We're putting that in the rearview mirror because we're going to start with Joan Laporta. And that's where the majority of our listener questions came from as well. I should have expected that the most pressing and the most urgent and the most recent thing was going to be the thing we're going to get questions about. And Francesc, I think where we're going to start is where the aggregators and the guys who click and share and want to hear from us, we're going to start with Messi's future. And Richard Buxton in our listener group asked, can we read anything into the fact that Messi chose to vote in this election for the first time?
Can we read anything? Yeah, we can read into the fact that it was the first time. He's been a soci for 20 years. He signed for Barca. He played his first match for Barca 20 years ago yesterday for the first time. He's a soci. He's someone who knows the club inside out. He's the best player to ever play for the club, and obviously he's the best player to ever play football, full stop. So the fact that someone of that caliber is involved with the day-to-day of the club, and not just the day-to-day here and now, but also the future of the club, is always going to be good news. If he was voting for Font or Freixa or Laporta, I don't think we'll ever know. I think it's quite clear that he's very close to Laporta, though, so that probably was his choice. But I think that the fact that he cares for what the future of the club will be can only be good news. He still needs to decide whether he will be part of that future. I mean, let's not forget that he's a free agent now already, so he could be signing for PSG, Manchester City, whoever tomorrow morning if he wanted. Doesn't look like he's going to do that. He's going to probably see a little bit more of games out of the season, speak to Laporta inside out in terms of what his long-term project is, in terms of whether Koeman stays, whether he brings anybody else, just to see who goes to the sporting director, etc., who is basically going to be surrounded by if he decides to stay. Obviously, if he does want to stay, then I think that they need to talk about that contract. Let's just call a spade a spade. The contract that Messi has is insanely high for, in my opinion, someone who's 34 years old, and someone who, if he renews for, say, 2 years, he will be 36 at the end of that. There's a lot of games, there's a lot of cups, there's a lot of trophies that Messi has conquered and lifted, but obviously he's not ever going to be able to defeat Father Time. So I think that, that wage, to be honest, there's a lot of ways to call it, but the money that he gets paid, the salary that he gets, I don't think that is in line to what the market value of Messi is today. This is not to take away anything that Messi has ever done, but I think that one of the main Laporta challenges moving ahead, now that he is the president, as we both predicted, to be fair, is that he needs to make the club sustainable. He needs to make the club better every day in every sense of the word. Obviously, it's a football club, Barcelona, so football is at the heart of it. But I think the economics, given the debt, has to come hand in hand. And sorting out Messi's future in terms of is he staying or is he leaving needs to be linked to how much would he get paid if he stayed.
Yeah, the two challenges for Laporta is 1, debt, 2, Messi. And when I saw the photos and the video, and I usually don't try to be the doctor of body language like many on social media are, but I will say that I felt yesterday, and even recently with the good run of form and the comebacks and all this stuff, I get the sense that Messi is as close to staying at the club as of yesterday that he's been in about a year and a half's time. But that said, in the last year and a half, he said, hey, please let me leave. And Bartomeu didn't let him leave. So obviously, just by staying in the fall, he was closest to staying at the club because he was still at the club. And I think that with Laporta in charge, we don't know who he voted for, but I think you get a sense as to who Messi voted for. I think we get a sense to who a friend of Joan Laporta being Jorge Messi, his father. We know who he voted for. We'll have a good sense of that. And you're right. I think what can be said of him being a captain and choosing to show that he's a member of this club and cares about the club. And I mean, hey, it's for anyone with kids, it's opportunity to show his son like what the democratic process looks like and things like that. It's a fun thing. And you can tell that there is something in Messi right now that he's not to say he's always going to be simpler than you think he is, but Messi loves his football, and Barca are playing great football right now. And he loves a sporting project that is not only going to support him, but makes it look like there's hope that he's going to win trophies. And that's what he wants too. And that seemingly is what Laporta is going to try to put forth. Now, Ted did ask to keep Messi. Can Barca offer a minority ownership position in lieu of wages and a transfer fee? I don't know about that. He's 33 right now, as we mentioned. He's going to be 34. And you don't really give a 34-year-old minority ownership, especially of a club run by socios. He is a socio, so he actually does have some ownership in the club. That's actually true. But he's one among many, many socios. But yeah, I think as to Frances's point, the wages is the bigger part, and that wage bill is going to be part of the debt. Now, part two of Laporta is his other challenge. I think the most important challenge, somehow even bigger than Messi, because there is a life, as you mentioned, Francis, beyond Messi in the future. So the dealing with debt, here's the questions here. Pancho, we all know number one is controlling the debt. What changes could Laporta implement in the club? Joran, how will Laporta deal with our debt? Antonio, what do you think could be his first big move or step with regards to put our team in a better financial position? And then Michael had also said, can Laporta make signings that make sense without breaking the bank? Is that even possible at this point? Our closed Facebook group listener, Ellie, who's really helpful in the listener group with a lot of content there, he did point out that Graham Hunter had mentioned on another podcast, Graham Hunter, who's written a book about FC Barcelona. He's written one of the primary English books in English about it, making of the super team. That Laporta's line of credit is apparently 3 times that of Fresha, which was 250 million euros reportedly, that being Fresha, which is for Laporta, that would mean his is about 750 million euros of individual credit. Because we do know that the Barca presidents do have an individual financial stake in the club. That's what we spoke about how Bartomeu might, when all is said and done, be on the hook a little bit for some of the debt that the club has accrued. We're not sure about that. I think that'll be settled in court years and years and years from now on the Bartomeu case. But for Laporta, even with his high line of credit, Barca are dealing with, as a club, 1.2 billion euros of debt, which is, I cannot understate this enough. That's a lot of money. And it's not even, as we've talked about many, many times before, it's not that entire debt is the problem. It's that the short-term debt is close to 146 million euros. That is the short-term issue that Laporta will have to quickly come in and solve. And if he has a line of credit that individually has him paying some of that out of his pocket, and then we'll say getting reimbursed with sponsorships, et cetera, later on, that might be the quick solution. That might be the quote-unquote quick fix that Laporta might have up his sleeve. We don't know the creditors that he's speaking to. We don't know how he's going to attempt to continue to distribute some of that debt over the long term, which is worrisome. But we also don't know the negotiations that we've mentioned, that power of and his charisma that he will have in negotiations with players on major wages. The one thing that he did say, now Laporta is, as I spoke about on the YouTube channel, I spoke about with Barcelev on last Monday, that Laporta has not really revealed his whole plan. He was the favorite and he didn't have to. And he still won the election without revealing his plan. But in reference to the economic response, he has used the term, and this is the translation, he has used the term digital initiatives, which means that he's looking to continue to expand. If that means, as Barcelev indicated, that he's going to create a Barcelona app, and he hopes that people pay for that. If he's going to continue to work on outreach of the studio page and the Twitch page, hint, hint, hint. But any of and obviously the Twitch page is not a digital initiative that's going to make the club a lot of money, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about digital initiatives as in how can he continue to expand the digital initiative of the club? How can he get socios to continue to get something out of the club by putting their money into it? That's another one of the big questions. How can he continue to expand that roster of socios? How can he continue to attract international socios? That's something else we've spoken about. So there are a lot of different things in the short term that he's going to take a look at. And I think it could be any or potentially all of those different options.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he knows himself. Obviously, you asked a lot of questions at once, which is good. Every time we've got La Ronda, that happens. I don't think Laporta is very clear on what he's going to do right now, to be honest. I listened the sort of celebration speech, the speech he gave after the result was confirmed that he was the winner, and he couldn't have been any more vague. He really couldn't. He really couldn't. He was saying all the right things, and he was thanking everyone, the people come to the votes, the sources for coming out during the pandemic. He then went on to thank obviously everyone in his team. He thanked Leo Messi for bringing his son to a democratic process, like you've already sort of mentioned and hinted before. And then he ended by thanking Font and Freixa for being great rivals in the campaign. So basically, tick, 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 everything you should say, he was saying. But at the same time, if you look at the substance, there wasn't much at all. The sporting plan, I'm not convinced what it is. I don't know what it is. I hope that he does. It looks like Jordi Cruyff is going to come on board fairly soon, but we don't know that. Xavi is not someone who has been mentioned just yet. I think that Koeman's promotion of the youth and the sort of the firm hand and having the buy-in that he seems to have from Leo Messi in particular, but from the old guard that, we've already spoken at length, they need to be phased out slowly but surely, but they seem to be happy at the moment. And if you're Laporta, really the old guard now were the youngsters that you were bringing in before. So that's going to be a good indication. So everyone seems fairly happy. So we haven't really heard too much in that respect. We don't know what's going on in there either. I mean, it looks like Mateo Aleman is going to come in as the director of football. That's what everyone seems to be indicating. But again, nothing final, nothing that we know today at the time of recording, obviously. He's already been to the Ciudad Deportiva this morning. He's already met Koeman and the first team plantilla, the squad, which was always natural going to be the first step. Again, no surprises there. Then he's gone on to see the basketball coaches, the femení. He's gone to see the handball section. So he's gone through all the sections, and basically he spent all of this morning, as far as I understand, just saying hello to everyone, and I'm assuming reassuring them that things are going to go in the right direction, whatever that means. Again, just me being vague on purpose, because that's what he's done all the way so far. Not in the celebration sort of speech that he gave after, but in different interviews he's given, and he hasn't given too many, he did say that basically whoever expects me to lift up, like we've been saying for the last 4 months, 5 months, whoever expects me to come on and audit the club is right that I will do that. But if you expect me to sort of pick up the carpet and just share the dirt with everyone, and basically me governing or me leading Barca with the rear view mirrors facing back and expecting some dirt to come out, that's not going to happen. So, I don't know what that means either. I know that there's a lot of I don't knows, but I really don't know. But I don't think he's going to be someone who's going to draw blood from Bartomeu, etc. Like, to be honest, and if you think back, that's what Sandro Rosell did to him straight away when he took over, and Bartomeu continued and had no words against it. But I think Laporta wants to be, he's mature, obviously, from what he was 18 years ago, not 18 months, but 18 years ago. In the sense that he has learned that one of the major things that Barca needs right now is people to stop arguing, is people to stop dividing the club, in which, like, I support Font, no, I support Bartomeu, no, I support Rosell, no, I support Laporta. That has to stop, because ultimately the club needs to move forward together. And I think that he's going to be as careful as he can to cater for everybody. But, in my experience, that's not always the best way to lead any team. But that's the way that Laporta has chosen to go forward. But obviously without many specifics as of today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there in terms of Laporta's plan moving forward, the growth that he's had over time. And I think you mentioned about the sporting direction that he's going to go forward with. And I think obviously there's a lot of questions because the people who are going to be the main puppeteers of that are not at the club yet. And we spoke about Laporta's team the first time, how there was credit to Ferran Soriano and Chiqui Bajirastain and some of the major figures of his team last time around that helped build and were the architects of what he was doing last time. We do know that historically speaking, Laporta did in his first time around when the club coming off the time from Nunez, and there was certainly a new era that needed to be ushered in for when Laporta took over, and Gaspar as well. And what he did the first time was he made that team revolve around, before Guardiola came and kind of kicked them out, it was Deco and Ronaldinho that became major figures. And remember, going all the way back to his first election, when he was not the favorite. I don't even remember the name of the businessman, but he was not the favorite.
Yeah, it was Lluís Bassat. Lluís Bassat was the favorite, and he was the underdog in the same way that Victor Font was now. Right. And everyone sort of was taking it as a given that Bassat would be the successful one in that election. And
Laporta, of course, said Beckham, and that was it.
Yeah. And then Beckham never came, which is good, obviously, because Ronaldinho came instead.
Right. And then all of that worked out. So, yeah, we still don't know, because I don't think Laporta, and we're not even talking transfers. I just think the team that he's trying to build is yet to be built. We do have a question about Victor Font as we put it in. And I do want to say a quick piece on this that you mentioned about the infighting. I completely agree. We've been accused of, it's so funny because we've been accused of being pro Laporta, pro Font. We never heard pro Freixa, but we have been pro Bartomeu, which is so funny to me.
I don't think anyone is pro Freixa. It's just those bots that kept voting on Twitter. Apart from that, no one.
No, well, there was that worry the morning of when everyone's like, well, what if it's Freixa? What if he gets all the mail-in votes?
Come on.
Right. So
that was never a worry. Anyone who knows the club knows that was never going to happen. Come on. He was associated with Laporta the first time round, then with Roussel, and then with Bartomeu. So he was not a culprit, but he was an associate of everything that happened. And if you want to break from that, which most people did, then Freixa was never going to win.
Freixa he was on that board till 2015, and that was enough time to do him in. So I think back to the infighting thing, I'm just happy to see that for people who wanted to hear my opinion, the people asked us, who would we have voted for? And I would say that if the day of there was a fear of me that Freixa might have won, I probably would have voted for Laporta, but I would have liked to see either Victor Font or Joan Laporta if I could have voted. So it's either way. I mean, for me,
do you want me to tell you then?
Honestly,
now that the election is finished.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yesterday, because last time I spoke about it, I was undecided. But having seen all the campaign, I would have voted for Victor Font yesterday, without a shadow of a doubt as well, because I think that the club needed his know-how in terms of what running an enterprise, because Barca is a football club, but again, it's a business. And I think that the business part of it is suffering so much that it's really, really, really affecting the sporting. So I think that Victor Font's plan was very clear. I think that he knew exactly what to do. He's done it recently. He's done it, taking companies from nothing to a lot. You can look up the numbers yourself. Very successfully in the world that we currently live in. I think that Laporta was very successful 18 years ago, but then again, he had young Xavi, young Puyol, he had Messi starting.
Messi was 16 years old. Yeah, the last time Laporta took over, Messi was 16, and Messi is not 16 anymore. So, right, it was
exactly.
Time. Yeah, but
exactly.
I think
he had the money to sign Ronaldinho. He had money to sign Eto'o and Deco, who wasn't cheap either. So, there was a lot of there was a much better situation then than there is now. And I think that the club needed someone new with a detailed plan and the connections that he said. And people were making fun of this, which I don't quite understand. All the connections that he clearly had done with Jordi Cruyff and Xavi and others. I don't for one second think Xavi would have been traveling tomorrow if Victor Font had been successful, but it is clear that those conversations did happen. But then again, I don't want to put the whole club and the whole future of the club on whether Xavi comes or not. I mean, Xavi may come under Joan Laporta next month. He may come in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. He may never come. Who knows? But I think that the roots, I think that the depth, I think that the structure, the columns, the pillars of what Victor Font was trying to build were very, very clear. And I think that someone who, let's face it, 2 years ago, 1 year ago even, was an unknown, and to the vast majority of sources was still an unknown 4 or 5 months ago, to have gotten 30% of the votes is remarkable. And I really, you can play this podcast back in 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. I think Victor Font will be Barca president one day. I just don't know when that will be, but I think that what Barca needed now is fresh blood with fresh ideas, even if the sporting section suffers for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But Laporta has won. Clearly, he had a lot of support from a lot of sources. I think clearly the fact that Barca lost 2-8 in the Champions League, and then before that in Liverpool, and before that in Roma, and before that in wherever it was. Luckily, I seem to have forgotten, which is good. It's taken me a while, but 4 years of failure in Europe. I think that especially the last one has really taken, the sources back to the successful years. And the guy that was in charge then was Laporta. Obviously, the Laporta 18 years ago cannot possibly be, and clearly isn't the Laporta now. But as I said, now that I've shared with the world what I would have voted, so I didn't want to influence anyone because whatever I say doesn't matter anyway. I think people listen to the podcast, but I'm not here to convince anyone of anything, just speaking my mind, and hopefully people want to hear that. But I wish Laporta all the best. I don't think that everything is going to be perfect, but it wouldn't have been perfect with anyone. I think that the fact he wants to reunite everybody is great. I think that the fact that he's so influential and he's got so many connections with agents and players and so much history with people like Victor Valdez, for example, that seems to be coming back to coach the goalkeepers, as I understand it. Again, at the time of recording, this could have changed by tomorrow, but all of that is great. But I think that, my vote would have been for Victor, but I wish Laporta all the best, and we'll do all we can to support from wherever we are.
Yeah, you could just tell with you and I that we probably would have voted for different people, but to me, that's kind of what the argument I was saying about the frustration and consternation between Laporta and Font, which confused me the most. You have, for all the things that, or the times that I saw that Font was getting called a Unista and that he supported Nunez and he was just an addition to, right, it's nonsense because Font and Laporta, if you look at what not only their ideologies are, but what they put forth, very, very similar. So I wouldn't be surprised.
With that, Dan, let me jump in because I've seen that as well. So Victor Font being called a Nunista, okay? Do people really know who Josep Luis Nunez was at the time?
Apparently not.
The guy that, well, that's what I'm saying. That's precisely where I'm going. So Josep Luis Nunez was a very successful Catalan businessman. He brought Cruyff back to coach the team. He enabled all of the signings of all of the greats like Stoichkov, like Koeman, obviously as a player, Michael Laudrup, Richard Witschke as well. He developed all of this core of the Barca team being from around Spain, mostly from the Basque country. So you had Vaquero, Zubizarreta, you had loads of players from there, Alex Sanko, and then basically he gave the club the first European Cup that we ever won, obviously the Champions League as it's known today. Now that is pretty remarkable. Obviously, and unfortunately, the vast majority of presidents that have ever led Barca have had some dark moments in there. Yeah. And Josep Luis Nunez is not really alien to that. But I think from a sporting perspective, he created the dream team, and he obviously killed the dream team in the end, to be fair, but he created it. And that's the most fun I've ever had watching Barca ever, until basically the Laporta years under Pep Guardiola. So being called a Unionista, I don't really know if that's meant to be an insult, to be honest. I'm not saying the guy is perfect, but come on. From a sporting perspective, he didn't change the club. We were a losing club all over the 70s and the 80s, and we would be jumping up and down if every 5 years we won a Copa del Rey. He changed that. So
yeah, I
don't think it's that bad. It's not that bad a thing at all.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the dogmatic ideology separations between when you say Cruyffista or Nunista, and how that's become two different camps, which is, again, as you mentioned, Barca presidents go back. I went back in history last night. I was looking at this, and you're right. So many presidents did not necessarily leave on their own accord. That's just something that happens at FC Barcelona. It's what happens in football. Nobody ever knows when's the right time to leave. Very rarely do people leave perfectly when they're supposed to. That's politicians, that's athletes, that's anybody. Nobody knows when the perfect time to go is. Unless you were Xavi leaving Barcelona the way he did that first time, you really don't know when's the proper time to leave. And you answered a ton of questions. We had one from Pachir about, do you think Xavi's in Laporta's plans? Well, that's the answer. So I also want to mention about the Victor Font Laporta stuff. Again, not only were they very, very similar, but do not be surprised if Laporta takes a huge portion of Font's plan and adapts it for his own and tweaks it just a bit. Font had a plan to bring fans back by April 4th. And that's another thing I want to mention again, that getting fans back in the stadium safely with, it's not even going to be up to the club. It'll be up to the Catalan authorities and health officials. Getting fans back in the stands and then also getting fans safely into that museum, that's huge for revenue. That's going to be so important. And Laporta, whenever he gets them back, is going to be able to take credit for that. Hopefully he can do that as soon as possible. But again, that's going to be anybody, any of the presidents. We're going to try to do that as soon as possible. And just to you, I agree with you too, that regardless of who I would have voted for, I think that Victor Font built something this time around and got name recognition. Again, politics 101. Name recognition goes farther than anything else in politics. It's just the truth of the matter. Even if you're the worst candidate, which what Laporta was not. Laporta was not the worst candidate. But even if you are the worst candidate, name recognition goes so far. And obviously, Laporta was able to ride that name recognition in a way that he couldn't in 2015 because Bartomeu was just coming off the treble wins. Remember, Laporta did lose in 2015. That said, Victor Font, I think he really helped his case, got 30% of the vote. And whether it's in a few years' time after Laporta or, as you mentioned, if it's a decade, I expect to see Victor Font again. I do think he will be Barca president one day. I think he clearly showed that unless there's somebody else who's waiting in the wings, that Font's going to be the guy just because of the things that he put forth. Now, I do want to get in the weeds a little bit here about Laporta's staff. As I mentioned, it's not just Laporta. The group that he built, the team that he assembled the first time around was what led to a lot of the success, and they are now working against him at other places. And you did allude to Victor Valdez returning. He'll be the academy goalkeeper coach is what his role almost officially at this point. You mentioned Mateo Aleman. He is going to be an essential figure, most likely the general manager. He'll be joining as a director and executive, taking over in that way. Again, most likely general manager will be his position. A little rundown on him for those who don't know. He's a two-time president of Mallorca. He was a CEO of Valencia from 2017 to 2019. Cool story about Aleman. In 2000, Florentino Perez, our friend at Real Madrid, he was a new president, and he offered Aleman the general manager job at Real Madrid. And instead, Aleman said, I don't think so. And so he was promoted to president at Mallorca instead. And then Laporta came calling after. Before he did leave Mallorca, he did lead them to the Copa del Rey title in 2003, which is the best moment in that club's history. But as far as having a major resume at, we'll say, a Champions League contending side, doesn't really have one quite yet. Valencia supporters, though, didn't like when he left in 2019 either. There was some disagreeing behind the scenes. He actually looked like he was going to take the Atletico CEO job this time last year, but maybe he knew a few things then about his friend Laporta and running for president now. And then I also want to mention, too, that Rafael Ustede is another vice president who's returning. He was a former vice president on Laporta. He'll be his main vice president again. And then the CEO is rumored to be Ferran Ferreter. I think I have that right. He comes from MediaMarkt. To those who are not initiated, that is an electronics retail in Europe. So that is a businessman. That is not a footballer in any way. That is a businessman. And then, so those are some of the figures we've seen. Jose Ramon Alexanco, who you mentioned as well, making a return to the club under Laporta, as well as Albert Penangs, who was a major figure in building the academy that of the 21st century. And Laporta actually had him in his plan. And I think it really hurt Font to see a name like Benazes show up at Laporta's presentation. I think that really hurt Font when he began the responsibility. But the guy that we've been asked about, Douglas asked, what can we expect from Aleman and Jordi Cruyff as sporting director? The first answer I give is that we don't know what any of these gentlemen are going to do. We know their credentials. I can read you their credentials, let you know what they've done, but I can't tell you what they're going to do because we don't know how all these pieces, we don't know how all these personalities are going to fit together. So I actually have a quick trivia question for you, Francesc, and then I want to talk about Jordi Cruyff. Fun fact, here's a quick question. Where do you think Jordi Cruyff played his most games as a player?
Where he played the most games as a player?
Yeah. This is almost a
Not at Barca. Not at Barca. No. That's for sure.
His second most was Barca B, though. Second most appearances for Barca B.
Possibly. Then Manchester United, then.
Wasn't Manchester. It was Deportivo Alaves. Is actually, and there he
At
didn't
the end, yes, he
yeah,
did go there. And after Man United.
after Man United, right? So that was
Yeah.
actually where he made his most appearances. So Jordi Cruyff, he's kind of remembered as a player, but not really. Most of his now his career has been as a sporting director and a manager now. So where he
Yeah.
started, yeah,
I'll tell you a little bit about Jordi Cruyff as a player. I don't know how much time we've got, so it's the podcast, so I'm just gonna say it. So what I remember from Jordi Cruyff as a player is that everyone thought that he was an enchufado. For those that speak Spanish, is enchufado. For those who don't, that means that you're plugged in. So basically, you are there because your father is someone. And at the Camp Nou, to be honest, as a player, he wasn't really well liked at all. And people actually used him against his father at the time. That's why he didn't last very much. And fun fact on the side, which most people, I guess, wouldn't know unless you were following Barca at the time, it was the same with Angoy. So Angoy was a goalkeeper from northern Spain that Croix signed for not a lot of money, but he signed him. He was he was not very good, okay? And he was a reserve goalkeeper. He was always kept one season after the next season, after the next season. And he ended up marrying Johan Cruyff's daughter, I'll have you know. So, yeah, those two, Jordi Cruyff and Mariano Angoy, were both used as weapons against Cruyff at the time. So not everything that Cruyff did made sense, to be fair. And I think that people would even know that. But lots of signs like Korneyev, Askach, there was several, didn't always go his way. So I'm just saying that so that people don't think that Cruyff was perfect in every way, in every shape of the word, in every sense of the word, and that all the decisions he made perfect sense. So it's the same for Laporta, it's the same for Bartomeu, it's the same for anyone that's ever been anyone at Barca, because you're under the scrutiny, you're under the spotlight, and everything you do greatly, people assume that it has to be great because it's Barca. But when you make a mistake, it's always remembered, and then again, it's plastered all over the press. So, fun fact.
Yeah, I mean, and Jordi Cruyff, his son, has not really been in a position where he's gotten international consternation for any of his decisions yet. He was at a club in Cyprus for 3 years as sporting director for a while, and then where he's made most of his resume as a sporting director is at Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel. He was sporting director there from 2012 to 2017. He did manage Maccabi Tel Aviv for one season then. And then since then, he's been a manager, actually. One season in China. Then he was named, this is a fun story, he was named the Ecuador manager. But due to COVID, he managed all of 0 matches because Ecuador never played. And since August, he's been the manager of Chinese Super League side Shenzhen FC, who are currently in 5th place at the moment, which is bottom half of the 8-team table. But he's not coming to be the manager of Barcelona. So we don't really need to look at what he's been doing as a manager for the last 3 years in time. And even at Maccabi Tel Aviv, how many things can he do and with what resources? We've actually never seen a Jordi Cruyff be at a PSG or a Man United, or it's not like he's done that kind of job before. So we don't know what he'll be able to do with the resources that he has. He has mentioned that while reports are that he will show up in Barcelona on Wednesday, he has said today that he's expected to be at Shenzhen FC training on Wednesday. But, and Barca also don't have money at the moment to go with these contract buyouts. So unless he wants to mutually consent to leave, which is going to take him a few days, or at least maybe even a few weeks, it might be before Wednesday. Or, hey, maybe he does negotiate his own buyout very quickly and he can show up on Wednesday. Again, that's what's being reported. So yes, Jordi Cruyff is going to be there, Aleman. So it's starting to take place. The plan and the figures that are going to be important to Laporta's group are starting to be put together. And we're starting to see at least the people that will be making those decisions. What decisions they're making, who knows? But one of the main decisions we do know, as we pivot here, talking instead, the final piece, I think, of the Laporta puzzle, is Koeman's future. And so Minor asked, with our recent victories and reboot of style from Koeman, winning a trophy would be sufficient for Laporta to offer him an extension of his contract. And then Tom also asked, with Laporta in place, do you expect Koeman to continue next season? And can I just throw in before, I'll let you answer those questions. The thing I want to throw in first is the Messi in this 3-5-2 that I've been seeing lately. When we talk about Messi's future at the club and the role he could play, this 3-5-2 that we've seen for the last 3 matches, I think is what you could see Messi doing for Barcelona until he's 35, 36 years old. In terms of playmaking, the way he's playmaking, he's being very judicious with when he has to pressure, and not only picking it up from midfield and assisting like he's been recently, but occasionally getting forward and goal scoring when he needs to. And so I think Messi's positioning has been spot on, and he has just been fantastic in fitting in that team, in the formation, and making the best of the connections that he has on the field. And I think this version of Messi is one that is not, this team is not Messi dependent in that 3-5-2, the way it's been in different formations. And I think he's really been thriving. That being Messi, I mean, he thrives all the time individually, but I think he's been connecting well. I wish I could say this a little bit better and more succinctly, but if that makes any sense, this Messi under Koeman the last 3 matches has been exceptional. I think that's the Messi that could stick around for, or choose to stick around for 2 to 3 years with all these young players that we're going to talk about later. But so what do you think about Koeman? Where do you think his future is going to lie with Laporta?
Well, I think that it doesn't depend on a trophy. That's for a start. One of the questions was asking that. The job that Koeman is doing goes far beyond winning the cup or far beyond winning the league, which I don't think we're going to win. And I know I keep saying that all the time, and I hope that I'm wrong, but I still don't think that there are going to be enough legs left in this squad once it really matters at the end. I think that it's great that we are winning pretty much consistently now. I think it's great that the team is growing, but I'm not too optimistic about winning any silverware. Obviously, we're in the cup final now, which is good. I wasn't optimistic about the comeback against Sevilla, but it happened, which is good. I like to be proved wrong, and I've got no problem with that at all, because it means Barca is winning. But Koeman staying next year, I don't think goes linked to silverware. I think that it is linked to the job that he's doing and what he is building. I think Koeman's legacy will not be the cup. Koeman's legacy would be the one that really trusted Pedri in Pedri's first season at Barca, the one that gave him the keys to the engine. The one that enabled Pedri to grow alongside De Jong and Busquets. Obviously, they seem to have been his partners in crime for most of the season. I think that Koeman goes to the one that gave Araujo, Mingueza, Ilaix Moriba the opportunity to come in and grow. The one that unfortunately couldn't do that with Ansu Fati, but I don't think anyone listening will have any doubt that if Ansu Fati was fit and continued to play at the standard that he was playing before he got injured, and to be honest, bit of an aside, far too long ago, isn't it? I think Ansu Fati should have really been back already, given his age and given the injury that everyone...
I always argue that for Ansu Fati, he's going to be in Barca for the next 10 years, hopefully. So I don't want to see him until he's 100% healthy.
No, I'm with you.
For 18-year-old teenagers with knee injuries, you've got to just keep them out as long as it takes. And I mean, maybe you can ask questions of the medical staff, but no, keep him out. I don't want to see him this season, actually.
No, I'm with you, but it is been a while, and based on what they told us that it seems to have been longer. There's a lot of secretism going with that. There's not really a lot of sharing of information. There are rumors coming out, etc. We don't really know what the situation is, but I don't want to digress. All of the youngsters that he's given a chance for, I think that Riqui Puig is getting more minutes, but obviously Ilaix Moriba seems to have it overtaken him. But again, if he's scoring golazos like he did the other day, and he's adding the strength and the muscle and the drive and the differential attitude and differential contribution that he has been showing when he's playing, then he probably should be ahead of Riqui Puig. And also the fact that he's 18 and Riqui Puig is 22. So he's 4 years younger. And this is extraordinary. Like, you've got Pedri starting pretty much every single match at 18 years old. You've got Ansu Fati, who would have normally started most matches at 18 years old. You've got Ilaix Moriba breaking through. These guys are extraordinarily young. Like, at 18 years old, I don't even want to think back about what I was doing. Probably nothing good. So to have them making a difference at this level is extraordinary. And Koeman's legacy will be this. It will be the fact that he took a team that was over-reliant on your Rakitic and your Vidals, and Luis Suarez have been, crawling around for 2 seasons, and he changed all that. I mean, very happy for Luis Suarez scoring against Madrid and doing great at Atletico. Great. He wouldn't have done that for us, not this season and not with the background. Obviously, as I've said a million times, Suarez being out of the dressing room has enabled Messi to mingle and to grow and to sort of be more supportive towards the youngsters. I don't think Messi opens up in the dressing room the way that he has done in terms of growing and enabling and supporting the youngsters the way he has if Luis Suarez is here, which is the key reason why you and I both said last season that he had to go. It had nothing to do with his quality in front of goal, that's never going to change. You know, the guy could be 77 million years old and still scoring hat-tricks. But that's not what we were arguing last year. It's the same with Vidal, the same with Rakitic. You know, you got players that get paid at that level and have got that CV, they've got to play. And if they play, you got the youngsters not playing. So all of that put into the balance. I've been listening to Laporta quite a bit as well. I don't think Laporta's got any intention of changing Koeman for next season, to be honest. I think that the honesty in which he's doing the job, I think the fact, and you know, people outside Catalonia may not really see this, but the amount of respect that Koeman has from the Catalan press is immense. And there are a lot of people very influential, such as, for example, the one that really is very close to him is Lluís Canut. Lluís Canut from TV3. He presented Goal a Goal, which was the like the match of the day back in the 1990s, every Sunday evening, every Saturday evening, and he was very good friends with everyone at the Dream Team. He went golfing with Koeman the other day. You know, they're that close. There was literally 4 players. He was explaining the other day in Catalunya Radio. There were 4 players, and it was Koeman, and it was like some sort of friend of his, and then 2 of the journalists. And the 2 journalists that are so influential, they are the ones that he took. I mean, the guy's not stupid, is it? If you're going to take someone, you take someone who is influential and is going to defend you. So the amount of support from anything coming through from the Dream Team is insane. And, you know, because like people like me, it transform our lives and it transformed our club into being what it is today. Out of all of those players, I think Koeman, Laudrup, even though that he went to Madrid in the end, Romario and Stoichkov, they're like gods in Catalonia. You know, they can really do no wrong. Obviously Guardiola, Guillermo Amor as well, Vaquero, all in the same boat. But Koeman's the one that scored the winner, and Koeman's the one that was there from the beginning of the Cruyff years until the end, and he was the captain as well. So he's got all of that going. Because of that, and again, for people outside Catalonia, these may not matter very much, but he speaks perfect Spanish. He does all of his press conferences in Spanish. In the Catalan radio, though, in all the press conferences, there's always a Catalan question coming. And whenever he speaks in Catalan radio, which this ticks a lot of boxes for all the Catalans, who are the socis, who are the ones that vote in the election, obviously, he understands Catalan perfectly. He doesn't speak it, but he understands Catalan perfectly. So if a question comes to him in Catalan, he will reply in Spanish. And then the next question comes in English, he replies in English. So he's got all of those boxes ticked.
No, I think his press conferences of all the managers that we've been following, he has the most seamless and the easiest for me to understand. His Spanish is slow and perfect for me. His English is perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, his press conferences are A+, and he's so frank and direct. And I mean, we've been slanted a lot, Francesc, for giving compliments to Koeman, but he certainly has something. And I want to do the academy stuff now. I was going to be the end of the show.
Yeah,
but
just one second. Just to say before we go. So I'm not going to say I told you so, but there were a lot of people. I mean, there was a point that it was, I would say, 90% of people bashing Koeman and Koeman out and get Xavi in tomorrow and all of that nonsense. If you are, and I keep calling it because to me it is a transition year, a year in which you're going to bring a lot of energy to the club, you're going to bring new legs, you're going to change the club. I think Koeman was the perfect choice for that. He took no nonsense from the oldies that he removed. He's taking no nonsense from the old guard that he's got there with him now. I've got no doubt that if he was trusted for next year, he will be able to give some names as people who need to be moved on. I think that if he needs to tell, I'm just giving you an example. If he needs to tell Busquets, you know what, thank you for everything you've done, but this season you're going to play 30 minutes per game and you're going to come as a sub, and so is going to start in your position. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Frankie de Jong, or maybe, I don't know, even, I'm going to say something stupid here, but even Uriol Busquets, I know it's not going to happen, but someone from the academy, whoever it is, they're going to start in your position. I want you to help them. I want you to nurture them, and you will come on and you will play your minutes, but your role this season is secondary. He's got no trouble to do that. And he will continue to trust Pedri and Mingueza and Araujo and all of these players that ultimately are the ones that have taken us to where we are today, which is 2 or 3 months before the end of the season. We still have a chance in all competitions. Obviously, Champions League seems a bit difficult, but the other two, we've got every chance to win it, for every chance to win that, even though that really given our squad and given how the season has gone, we shouldn't be there. And he's got a lot of injuries as well. So he's not doing too badly. The guy's not perfect. Substitutions are still too late for my liking.
Yeah.
But, no one really is. I think he's a good manager based on what he's done this season, without a shadow of a doubt. So I would give him my confidence. And I think Laporta, and I may be wrong here, I think Laporta will too.
I mean, if you got to go on your victory lap about Koeman, Francesc, then Cal Ripken is going to be jealous about how long I go on this victory lap around the stadium. I mean, I'm the one who's been saying that Barca could win trophies this season still. I'm the one who said that they could be in these competitions, and they are. But I'm not going to go on that victory lap until a Copa del Rey final is won. But my victory lap is going to come when it comes to the academy again this year. Barca is the fourth youngest team in the Liga. And this is, again, where we redefine what transition season means. Transition season, to me, never even met that there won't be trophies. It meant that there's going to be young players making mistakes, and the squad's going to look radically different than it did last year. And it does, because the old players are out and the young players are in. The big difference is what we're talking about and what I've been mentioning, that this is, again, one of the deepest squads I've seen in a long, long time because of the young players. And if these young players, I can go back, I'll find the tape for somebody. If these young players were exceeding expectations, Barca could contend for titles. And that's what they're doing, because these youngsters have exceeded expectations. It's been 16 years since the last time when Barca played this many under 22 players, more than 1,500 total minutes. 16 years. And this year, it's already at 1,800 minutes and counting. So that just tells you in the 21st century, they've not played under 22 players this many minutes, 18 minutes and counting. Again, fourth youngest team in the league this season, second in the table now. And that's how we're ended at the end. But for Ilaix Moriba, I want to do my little Ilaix Moriba victory lap now. Five youngest goal scorer in Barca's Liga history. So no Paulinho Alcantara on that for you history buffs. He was 15, but way, way, way back in the day. But Ilaix is the fifth youngest behind Fati, Boyan, Messi, and Pedri. Four of those five players are currently with Barcelona on their first team roster at the moment. I want to mention that too. And why I want to say about the Ilaix thing, here's the little ditty about the Golazo and how it was surprising to me that he hit it with his left, but the fact that he scored it was not surprising at all. I think there is a lot left up to chance. Again, this is a disclaimer I put in every talk about every 18-year-old player. There's a lot left up to chance, and a lot has to go right for these kids to turn into real players. Of course, I'm not denying that. But it's not crazy that there is a group of talented kids all at similar ages at the moment at the club, if you've been paying attention. Talent does ebb and flow. Germany, France, Spain, UK are always producing huge talents. That is due quite a bit to neocolonialism and historic disparities of these countries and financial resources and other things like that. But as I've spoken about before, it's not surprising when there is something. I think there's something special. It's less surprising in one of those big clubs. I mean, not clubs, but one of those big countries for these things to happen. But there is something I find wonderfully random about a crop of talent that Barca has seen before from a similar place coming up at a similar time. You don't need to compare this group to Puyol and Xavi and Iniesta. You don't have to, but you can say that there's a influx of talent that we have not seen since that generation. Again, not comparing like for like, but saying that there was a lull, and just like there are hills and valleys, and there was a hill, the highest mountain of a peak of talent coming from the academy, and then there was a valley where you didn't see many products. They were guys who were first team caliber players on the fringes, but they weren't necessarily starters. And now you're seeing that hill rise to having, some talents that are some of the best teenagers in world football. So yes, Barca still at the academy age still had to convince Fati to come from Sevilla. They had to convince Gabi to come from Real Betis. They had to convince Ilaix Moriba to come from Espanyol, believe it or not. And you can throw Pedri from Las Palmas at the end in there as well. And with the exception of Pedri, they still needed to cultivate that talent and coach them up to be players that they had the potential to be. And they still haven't even reached that because they're 18 years old. And there aren't even, again, they're not there yet, but we watch so much football, and you do know something special when you see it, though, with Ilaix Moriba, just like with Fati, just like with Pedri. You know the special thing you're seeing. So I saw him years ago at the La Liga Promises, and back then I was like, oh, this kid's way better. I mean, yes, he was also way bigger, but this kid's way better than everyone on this field. And then watching the highlights from 3 years ago when he was 15 years old and he scored that hat trick, the goal from midfield against the Real Madrid U19s. It was an individual moment when you went, oh, this kid's way younger than everyone on the field, and he's doing something like that. So he was always a very special talent. And people rolled their eyes at me back then when I said that it's a big deal when he was 15, turning 16 in January of 2019. and he was on the fence about moving to Man City or Juventus, and Barca had to overpay to keep him because obviously you want to say, hey, don't overpay.
Unprecedented as well that Dan, they haven't really done that for anybody else, so they must have seen what you saw.
Right,
yeah.
Except for Fati and Ilaix Moriba.
Oh, them both, yeah.
Right, they've been paid and they've proven to be special talents. So the last point I want to make about Ilaix Moriba here, I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. We can do we'll do it here. He's not Paul Pogba. I saw it again after he scored the goal. People saying Paul Pogba. Wait. I got a little easier. I'm trying to make it easier for people here. I wanted to be more creative, okay, and actually look at the player's stuff and not just physical features. So he's actually looking at it. He reminds me of a young Steven Gerrard, actually, or Leon Goretzka in his Bayern role. Leon Goretzka, the midfielder, and not his Schalke role. So that's Leon Goretzka at Bayern, a young Steven Gerrard. We're talking when Steven Gerrard won the Champions League back in 2005. I'd even take Yaya Toure at Man City, not Yaya Toure at Barcelona, because he played much farther forward at Man City than in Barca. So a forward-thinking, much farther forward as he did with Man City, Yaya Toure, Steven Gerrard, Leon Goretzka. You can, I want our listeners to give me other names, but I'm tired of the Paul Pogba stuff. It's trite, it's annoying. I'm gonna say it's lazy, and it's lazy and it's silly. And if you compare players based on physical attributes, fine, but make sure that their playing styles at least are similar. And he is tremendous on the ball. He's Ilaix Moriba, just like Paul Pogba. If that's what you want to make the comparison to, sure. But there's a lot of players who are technically great on the ball, and there are players who he has a different player. He's a different player. So I don't want people who don't necessarily or haven't been watching him for years to just make a comparison because that's what everyone else is saying. But what I want to hear from people is be creative. Think about the player you see and actually compare him to other players with similar skill sets.
Yeah, and but we both agree that Pedri is the next Iniesta, right?
100%. I don't know what I can't imagine anything else. So, Francesc, I do want to end the show with asking you a simple question here. Dirk asked, we've been talking all the positive stuff. We've been talking all the good stuff. Dirk asked, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid drew. We're now only 3 points behind Atletico Madrid. They have a game in hand, however. Liga, Francesc?
Yeah, I mean, until it's over. Technically there is. I mean, I'm not going to cop out, but, until Fat Lady sings, it's, the opera is still going. So until we are mathematically out, there is a possibility. We've got a team that obviously doesn't seem to, and I could be wrong here, but doesn't seem to have a lot of games to be played in Europe. We've got one more game in La Copa. If we get enough rest, we could compete for this. There is Liga, I guess. I hope that Barca are very successful. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically and probably still 6 points if Atletico Madrid win that game in hand. 6 points is still a bit. And Barca still have Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid on the schedule. So the big question for Barca has been, until this last week against Sevilla, they hadn't won a quote-unquote big match this season. That match against Sevilla was the first match that they have won this year that you'd say that they were the underdogs, where this season,
both of them,
not like the underdogs.
Both of them, the one in La Liga and the one in La Copa, both of them, they did very well.
Right. So for Barcelona finally winning matches as underdogs, and I think obviously PSG, we haven't previewed at all. We don't need to. It's 4-1, and they've got 4 away goals to overturn. So you have to get at least 4 goals in PSG and hope they don't score at least 2 to give yourself any shot. And that's a hard thing to ask of this Barcelona side. However, if they're going to do it, this is the moment. The last week was the one that Barca needed to get an overturning of PSG. So I think there is hope. There is still hope. There's always hope. This season has proven to be hopeful and a lot of exciting things. So Francesc,
for the game in France, for the Paris game, the PSG game, I just really want Barca to not embarrass themselves. I know that's putting the bar really, really low, but I think that they need to go out and they need to compete, and they literally need to take it as if it was a one match. But what they cannot do is what they did in the first game, which is just show up and see what happens and then getting run over. That cannot happen. I mean, I've been disappointed before, and I've been disappointed before with what the team has done. But I really would be incredibly surprised if this Barca, after the week we've had, went to Paris and did nothing. I think that if they go out and they fight and they run and they try to outsmart the rival, I mean, it is quite clear that Koeman should stick to this 3-5-2, because what he tried last time didn't work. So with this new system, with basically the lights being in the line and that many goals to be scored, then we may have to watch a very good game, hopefully a very fun game. Let's see if we win. I think the game should be the target. If we get an advantage early on and we score like a goal right before the halftime and we're 2-0 up at halftime for whatever reason, then there is hope. Hay Liga, but obviously hay Liga de Campeones in this occasion. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But I was really expecting Barca to go out and fight, and certainly not another disappointment at European level, because I don't think we'll be able to take it anymore.
I mean, I think the 3-5-2 does make sense. Of course, with Neymar not fit, then I mentioned shutting down Kylian Mbappe. It's easier said than done. It's impossible to do, but teams have done it, and they've done it by just putting as many bodies on him as they possibly can. The same way that teams shut down Messi. You just throw as many bodies and hope that they don't beat you with an individual moment of brilliance. And you try to get everybody else off the ball and force those defensive midfielders to continue to take those long shots. So where I end this show is I do want to mention for International Women's Day, speaking of the Champions League, Barca did have a team last week go 4-0 up in the Champions League round of 16. That was the Femení against Fortuna Hajoring. It was Jenny Hermoso, can't stop scoring right now. She had a hat trick in that match. Caroline Graham-Hansen is making things happen on the right wing. Those two, as I said, combined all 3 times for Hermoso's midweek hat trick, and then they won on the weekend as well. And Oscar Mingueza's sister, Ari, she's the captain of Barca B. We should mention here that there's something, and this is the thing that fills me a lot of that makes me excited about talking about Laporta taking over at the club as well, that there's something about Barcelona with Oscar Mingueza coming through. And I didn't mention him when I mentioned all the young players, because again, he's just another one of the many young players. There's tons of young players, and he's another one of them. He wasn't a prodigy like the others, but he's a first team player and playing as such. And there's something with both him and his sister this week. There's something that feels very Catalan about the club again, but it doesn't detract from that international presence. And it doesn't make me, as an international living here in the US, feel like I'm not a part of that club as well. So that's the good vibes you get when a new president comes in. And it could obviously certainly sour with a bunch of bad results and yada, yada, yada. But if you're just following the Femení, not many bad results there. They have not lost in the league at all this season, and they're taking care of business in the Champions League. But I do want to mention for the Femení, for those who follow it, it is not going to be easy. If anything, it's going to be harder than when they made the final 2 years ago and they made the semifinals last year. We've been talking about the investments made into the Femení, the Barca Femení, but there are resources being put into the women's game all over the place. Man City, Chelsea, who are 2 goals up on Atletico Madrid, who beat Barca for the Spanish Super Cup. Bayern Munich, it was 6-1 in their first round of 16 match. Probably PSG, they've yet to play even their first. Then the regulars in Wolfsburg and Lyon. One of those teams will probably be waiting in the quarterfinals. Plus one of Swedish side Rosengard or Austrian side Sankt Pölten. The winner of that tie between the last two is probably who you're hoping for. But to win it all and to be the best, you've got to beat the best. So expect one of Man City, Chelsea, again, Bayern, PSG, Wolfsburg, Lyon. There's been a lot of resources put in the women's game, which is a good thing for competition. It's a good thing to have 7, 8, 9 teams that could win the Champions League Cup every year. That is a good thing for the sport. That is a good thing for the competition. And Barcelona, don't get it twisted. They are dominating Spain. They've run away with it. They won last year's Copa del Reina, which was finally played the final a few weeks ago. And now they're going to have they'll be a favorite in the Copa del Reina again this season. And they are going to be a favorite. They're a favorite, I think, to win the Champions League. Not the favorite. That's still Lyon, as it has been for a decade. But they are a favorite in that competition, and they've earned it and they deserve it. So again, on International Women's Day, I want to say that the Femení, because of Barca TV, because of even the on what is Power in the US, it's Paramount Plus or whatever it is. It was CBS All Access. It has the same rights as the Men's Champions League. You can watch the Women's Champions League the same way. They are on TV now. If you take the time and take the opportunity to watch, they're doing special things. So whether it's on Barca TV or on the streaming that you find the Champions League for the men, they are worth watching. And again, not only happy International Women's Day, but I'm so excited that the Femení are having I think, arguably their best season ever.
That's good. That's good. Is today the day where we celebrate Neymar's sister as well?
That's coming. I mean, it's this week, right? I don't have it on once the player leaves. So if you watch our Instagram, I always post the happy birthday to the players. We have Araujo's on Sunday, Iñaki Peña last week. But once you leave the club,
that's the one. That's the one you need to do.
Once you leave
no one else matters.
I take you off the calendar though. So Neymar and his sister are off the calendar. When he was at the club, I did have Neymar's birthday, Neymar's sister's birthday. But no, I will not be making Instagram posts. I've got too much other content to worry about, Francesc. I can't take that.
Okay, good. I apologize for bringing her up.
Well, I do have to work on some content now. Again, there's PSG on Wednesday, so hopefully the good vibes continue. And as we talked about, even any kind of result that shows that Barca are a team worth fighting for the Liga, that's going to fight in the Copa del Rey final. Those are the objectives at the moment. But hey, crazier things have happened. So it's a good moment. This is the moment for those things to happen. So this is also the moment that we're going to end the show, and a good moment for you to not only check in your app and check out the show notes to subscribe to the show, but you can follow us on social media, on Twitter at the Barcelona Pod, or at HelpMD13 for me. And I also ask you to follow us on Instagram at the Barcelona Pod. Again, I've been doing some birthday stuff, some fun stuff over there. Closed Facebook group. That's where we got the La Ronda questions. That's tbpod.link/group. Deeper dive discussions and all about. And we are on Patreon, where you can continue to help us make these shows at tbpod.link/Patreon. We're on YouTube. We're over there. I broke down the presidential candidates in quite a bit of detail. Then I had that.
That's very good.
And then I had that on as the podcast as well, running solo. But thankfully, Francesc is back to help me with this one. We're on YouTube. It's the push to 10,000. I know we're quite a bit away, but hey, we're trying to get there. So subscribe there and give us a like, follow, all that. That's helpful. And I also want to plug, as I will do for the rest of this season at least, I'm co-hosting. It's called The Locker Room on FC Barcelona's official Twitch page. So you can join Anton and I over there the day before every match. That has been in the works for a few months. So I'm excited to finally be able to say that, hey, that's what's happening. That's what I have going on the day before the match. So again, we have a new president. We have all this new stuff. Good vibes, Francesc. I thought we were pretty positive today.
I think we were. Let's just finish it on a downer. I just want to add, and sorry, that's it.
No, there's no negativity. All right. All positivity. No. So we want to thank you I was positive that we had a great show today. So thanks so much for listening to the Barcelona podcast. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon, and Forza Barca.
Forza.